Hey, it's the Promise Kid here with
The Promised Son.
Alright, I'm so glad that you guys can join us through this journey of the John edition, reading through the Bible. We are in John chapter
9.
John chapter 9. So excited. If you haven't done yet, please
Subscribe. Like.
and most importantly, share it with somebody that you love,
You also
a friend, a loved one, and a family member.
Ring the bell.
You can ring the bell if you want the notifications. This has been a blessing to you.
I'll
Continue
say
to
ring the bell after every session.
Okay, but most importantly,
Share. And also ring the bell if you want to get every single new video.
amen. All right, let's go ahead and do a quick prayer, you guys.
Lord, thank you, Lord, for this day. Let it be blessed. Thank you, Lord, for letting us be able to do this video. Thank you, Lord, for letting us have this Bible so we can share with them. Lord, let us have understanding so we can tell them and let them be able to know what we're saying, Lord. In Jesus' name, pray. Amen.
Amen. All right, so let's go ahead and read. Did you want to start off reading or you want me to start off reading?
I'll start off reading.
All right, let's go ahead and read. Let's go ahead and read chapter 9.
Now, as Jesus passed by, he saw a man who was blind from birth. And his disciples asked him, saying, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?
Okay, so Jesus is passing by and he saw a blind man, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what did his disciples ask him?
Did his parents sin or did he sin?
We know that during his time that if somebody was sick, if they were blind, if they were paralyzed, that it had to do with
Sin.
some type of sin. So his disciples asked him.
Who sinned? Was it his parents or him?
Okay, so let's see what Jesus answers. I'm going to go ahead and read this part. Jesus answered, neither this man nor his parents sinned, but that the works of God should be revealed in him. I must work the works of him who sent me while it is day. The night is coming when no one can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world.
Okay, so what I did out of that, like he's saying, he was like that because it was for his work.
Okay.
For a miracle? I don't know.
For a miracle, okay. So the blind man was blind, so God, Jesus himself, can do the works of God in him and show his glory. Amen. Okay. So he says in verse 4, I must work the works of him who sent me while it is day. So meaning he must do what?
Do the works. He must do the miracles. He is the one. He's not. It's not anyone else. It's not Paul. It's not Solomon or I don't even know if that's not that. Who knows?
Okay, so who sent him?
God.
Okay, known as the
Almighty.
What am I to you? I'm your
Father.
Okay. While it is day, there's still time to do the work, right?
Mm-hmm.
The night is coming when no one can work.
When no one can work.
Okay. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. Okay, so when he heard these things, he spat on the ground and made clay with saliva. And he anointed the eyes of the blind man with clay. And he said to him, Jesus said to the blind man, go wash in the pool of Siloam, which is translated sent. So he went and washed and came back seeing. Therefore the neighbors and those who previously had seen the blind man, that he was blind, said, is this not he who sat and begged? Some said, this is he. Others said, he is like him. He said, I am he. Therefore they said to him, how were your eyes open? He answered and said, a man called Jesus made clay and anointed my eyes and said to me, go to the pool of Siloam and wash. So I went and washed, and I received sight. Then they said to him, where is he? He said, I don't know. They brought him to they brought him who formerly was blind to the Pharisees. Now it was Sabbath when Jesus made the clay and opened his eyes. Then the Pharisees also asked him again how he had received his sight. And he said to them, "He put clay on my eyes, and I washed, and I see." Therefore, some of the Pharisees said, "This man is not from God, because he does not keep the Sabbath." Others said, "How can a man who is a sinner do such signs?" And there was a division among them.
So they didn't think he was God because God created the Sabbath. God. Because God created the Sabbath. So, and then he doesn't follow the Sabbath. So basically they think that he's not following his father's orders.
Yeah, so God through Moses created the Sabbath day and to keep it holy. But the Pharisees and Sadducees throughout time had created their own laws and works of what they thought was work and said you couldn't do this, you couldn't do that. But Jesus was showing them that you could do something righteous and you can do something to help somebody else. That you could do something to help somebody else on the Sabbath day, and it was okay. You weren't doing a selfish act. So there was a division among the Pharisees. Some said that he was a sinner, and some said, "How can a sinner do such signs?" All right, so verse 17. They said to the blind man again, "What do you say about him? Because he opened your eyes." So who's talking right here?
The Pharisees.
And who are they talking to?
The blind man.
Okay. But what are the Pharisees asking the blind man?
They're asking him what do you say about the man? And he's saying since you actually had the encounter, we didn't see him, but you did.
Okay, yeah. So they're technically asking him, since you had the encounter, what do you say? You're the one that had the encounter with him. You're the one that had the experience. So they're trying to find out from him. And the blind man said, he is a prophet. But the Jews did not believe concerning him, the blind man, that he had been blind and received his sight, until they called his parents of him who had received his sight. And they asked him, saying, "Is this your son, who you say was born blind? How then does he now see?" His parents answered them and said, "We know that this is our son, that he was born blind. But by what means he now sees, we do not know. Or who opened his eyes, we do not know. He is of age. Ask him. He will speak for himself." His parents said these things because they feared the Jews. For the Jews had agreed already that if anyone confessed that he was Christ, he would be put out of the synagogue. Therefore his parents said, "He is of age. Ask him." So what happens here now with the Pharisees after the blind man says he is a prophet? What do? Do they believe him?
No.
Okay. So what do the Pharisees do?
They ask his parents.
They ask his parents. They call his parents. And what else happens? What does the parents say?
They say, "Ask him. He's the one who saw it."
Okay. And what do they say about the man? Is he his son or not?
Yes, his son, but he was surely born blind.
Okay. So they confess, and they are witness. Remember how we talk about witnesses? They are witness to that this is his son, and that he was born blind. But they say, what about his being able to see?
He said he was blind.
Okay, and what else do they say now?
But we do not know who made him see.
Okay, and to do what?
And to ask him.
To ask the blind man.
Yeah,
So you see this encounter of the blind man. He encounters Jesus. He is healed from his blinded eyes, and he's telling the people, the Pharisees, that he has received his sight. Even there are people that had seen him before and knew that he was blind from before. After he claims that the man that he healed them was a prophet, they still have this conviction and this stubbornness that no, this can't be. So let's go ahead and further investigate. So they call his parents over and they ask him, is this your son? They say yes. Was he born blind? He say yes. How can he see now? And they step back and say, you know what? How he sees, we do not know. Ask him, he's of age. Why did they say that to the Pharisees?
Because they were scared.
They were scared of what?
Being kicked out of the synagogue. Like, that's like one of the most holy places in the world, at least at that time.
Amen. They were scared of being kicked out of the synagogue. That is where they presented their worship, and that is where they went to learn of the teachings. This is many times where Jesus had preached himself. Okay. Verse 24. So they again called the man who was blind and said to him, give God the glory.
The glory.
We know that this man is a sinner. And he answered, the blind man answered and said, whether he is a sinner or not, I do not know. One thing I know, that though I was blind, now I see.
And also, like, why would God give powers to a sinner? Why? If he was a sinner, why would God let him do miracles? Well, not powers, just miracles.
Amen. Especially if they believe that sin brought this sickness. How can a man that is a sinner heal a man who was supposedly born from sin? That just sounds very contradicting. All right. Verse 26. Then they said to him again, what did he do to you? How did he open your eyes?
He already said that. He spit on the ground. He put the mud on his eyes, and he washed it in the something river.
He washed it in the pool of Siloam. He answered them, I told you already, and you did not listen. Why do you want to hear it again? Do you want to become his disciples? So these Pharisees were so intrigued with this healing of the blind, of a man being born blind, they continued to ask him the same question, and it seemed like they were so passionate about finding out what happened that this blind man thought that they might have wanted to become his disciples as well. All right, so verse 28. Then they reviled him and said, you are his disciples, but we are Moses' disciples. There we go, going back to Father Abraham and Moses, the law of Moses. We know that God spoke to Moses. As for this fellow, we do not know where he is from. Verse 30. The man answered and said to them, why, this is a marvelous thing, that you do not know where he is from. Yet he has opened my eyes. Now we know that God does not hear sinners.
He does not hear sinners. He does not listen. That's what I was saying earlier. Why would God give miracles and powers and all that to a sinner?
But if anyone is a worshiper of God and does his will, he hears him. This is the blind man speaking. Since the world began, it has been unheard of that anyone opened the eyes of one who was born blind. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing.
Nothing at all.
So this blind man is not like preaching. He's preaching Jesus hardcore, saying, look, you don't even know where he's from, and we know that from the beginning of time there has not been such a miracle as this. God does not give the power to sinners to heal, but if anyone is a worshiper, God hears him. So he's saying that this man is from God and sent from God. Verse 34. They answered and said to him, you were completely born in sins, and are you teaching us? And they cast him out. Jesus heard that they had cast him out, and when he had found him, he said to him, do you believe in the Son of God? He answered and said, who is he, Lord, that I may believe in him? And Jesus said to him, you have both seen him, and it is he who is talking with you." Then he said, "Lord, I believe," and he worshipped him. And Jesus said, "For judgment I have come into this world, that those who do not see may see, and that those who see may be blind." Then some of the Pharisees who were with him heard these words and said to him, "Are we blind also?" Jesus said to them, "If you were blind,
you would have no sin.
You would have no sin. But now you say, 'We see,' therefore your sin remains." So in this last portion, this man has a second encounter with Jesus after preaching that Jesus is from God. Sometimes we hear stories or testimonies from different people and we don't believe and we have to wait for the next testimony. How many times does God have to talk to us? How many times do we have to ask or question God if God is God and if he's the Father and if Jesus is the Son and if there is so much power in Jesus' name? How many times do we have to question it after we know and have experienced it or have heard of the experiences like no other? Should we not believe? And this blind man, he believes and he has a second encounter with Jesus. And Jesus asked him, "Do you believe in the Son of God?" He said, "Lord, just tell me who he is and I'll believe in him." And really, really important, you have both seen him and it is he who is talking with you. So it was both spiritually and physically. Now the man could see Jesus and hear Jesus, but he could also see, because remember, he says, if you were blind, you would have no sin. But now you say, "We see, therefore your sin remains." He is referring to this man who was blind and had no sin to begin with. This man was neither born from sin or any type of sinful wrongdoings. And he's saying, if you were blind, you would have no sin. And he's using this man as an example. He's not saying overall if you were blind or physically blind. He's using this man as an example that if you were blind, just like this young man who was born blind, you would have no sin, because he wasn't born for sin, but he was born for the glory of God. But the fact that you say that you see and that you know and you don't follow Jesus and you don't claim Jesus to be the Son of God, therefore your sin remains in you. So when you hear and you see spiritually, open up your eyes spiritually, open up your ears spiritually so that you can receive the miracle that the Lord has for you, the life-changing experience that the Lord has for you. We thank you guys for listening. If you haven't done so, please
subscribe, like,
and most importantly,
share and ring that bell.
All right. It is the Promise Kid here with the
Promise Son.
Thank you guys and be blessed.